Welcome to Youth in National Revival with Dr. K.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be, and welcome to another episode of Youth in National Revival. And I'm your host, Dr. K. Before we continue, I'd like to implore you to bring in your friends, your colleagues, your children, your family, everyone that you think will benefit of this conversation. Again, I have an amazing guest with me this week, as usual, and he's not been here before, so it's his first time, but he's an amazing person. And today we want to continue our conversation on the renewal of Lagos and Nigeria. We know that the gospel is what renews, and today it's a conversation around the gospel and the work that my guest is doing in contributing to the renewal of Lagos and Nigeria. And there's no other person than Barrister Temidai Adeyemi. You're welcome to Youth in National Revival.
Thank you very much, Pastor K. You know, it's interesting that you introduced me as a barrister. But to our audience, thank you. It's good to join you, and I'm happy to be on this platform. Thank you.
Barrister by training on Minister of Church Planting. That's my vocation, right? So, just before we delve into the main conversation, it's good to know the man behind the purpose or behind the mission. So let's get to know your background. You know, when you grew up from and you got saved and your family and everything. Let's just have a sneak peek into that.
Okay, thank you. My name is Temidai Adeyemi. From Kwara State, but I have been resident in Lagos for a couple of years. I think this year will make it 29 years being in Lagos off and on. It's 29 years ago. I'm married to Fumilayo, and I'm a father of one. I affect she's 2 years. By the grace of God, I became a Christian sometimes in 2007. November 2007. And since then, it's been a joy working with the Lord. As Pastor King mentioned, I trained as a lawyer, doing vocational ministry in City Church. I am the minister for church planting and staff care at City Church. That's what I do.
All right. Thank you very much. It was good to know that. And so my first question is, you studied to become a lawyer, and now you are a minister, as it were.
Yes.
Have you always known all the while that you're going to the bar and all of that and saying, my Lord, my... Have you always known that you were going to end up in church ministry, or it was just something that happened?
I would say it's a combination of both. I was in a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and we were asked to kind of give like a life statement or introduce ourselves briefly. And I remember what I said was, trained for law, but called to more. From childhood, I would say by a combination of desire, but also affirmation from other people, sometimes jokingly, sometimes prophetically, you know, I felt this pull or this desire to go into vocational ministry. And when City Church came, it was a fit, you know, in terms of the vision, direction, the structure, the culture, and so many things aligned. And it was a joy for me to join staff with City Church, and it's been a joy since then as well.
All right. So when did you become a part of the City Church staff?
Okay. I came on staff in January 2019. Before then, I worked in a law firm. I headed a law firm, but the specialization was in labor, employment, and industrial relations.
Okay. So as Minister of Church Planting and Leadership at City Church, part of your role is to direct the affairs, right? Or maybe lead operations. Maybe it's better to put it that way. Lead operations for Renewal Academy and the Renew seminars and also Renew retreat. So like the entire Renew structure, you lead it as it were. Not, of course, you lead it under Pastor Femi as executive director, but you lead the operations.
Yes.
And that make that work easily. So when did you receive that, or did you accept that vision for Pastor Femi, who must have conceived the vision and transferred it to you? When was that, and how did you receive it? Was it something you received gladly? Was it something you were willing at first? Or you just said, let's see how it is? Or was it something that you knew and you embodied from the one when you were sharing it?
That's an interesting question. Obviously, the vision had been conceived before I came on staff. City Church held a conference, I would say the inaugural Renewal conference in 2018. So a group of people in the leadership, staff, and just the leaders of City Church. City Church has what I would call plurality of elders. So while Pastor Femi is the lead pastor, we have other pastors serving alongside with him as well. So the vision for Renew had been conceived before I came on staff. I learned about it during the interview process, and on a light note and on a joking note, I remember almost accepting, the job, and then Pastor Femi was like, "You need to discuss with your wife." So from first day, I think it was an attractive thing for me. It aligns with my vision for ministry, and it's something that I'm really passionate about. So from the first day, I would say I'd embraced it.
So we've been talking about this vision.
Yes.
What is this vision, as it were? The vision for Renew.
Yes. Renew exists to bring about spiritual vitality to the Nigerian church. But beyond churches, Renew is an initiative of City Church, and I will have to start from that place. City Church has a vision to catalyze a gospel-centered movement that will renew the city of Lagos spiritually, socially, and culturally. And Renew is one of the vehicles through which we hope to see the gospel renewal that we are seeking. And if you look at that, the iteration of that vision, the renewal starts spiritually, but it doesn't stop there. It extends socially and it extends culturally as well. So the foundation of gospel renewal is to have sustainable, healthy churches, but people from those churches are then deployed, to serve in different places, both within the church and outside of the church. So Renew's vision has grown to embrace not just church leaders, it has embraced ministry leaders. And Pastor Kate touched on seminars. For seminars, you would also have people that are leaders from the kingdom, not in the kingdom as per church, but they are Christians, they are in business, they are, not for profit, but gospel principles and gospel practices will shape them to be able to become better leaders, to bring about renewal in every sphere that they belong to as well.
Wow. Fantastic. And what would you see in our society, maybe in Lagos, for example, for you to say, yes, we have actualized this vision?
I think ultimately, the vision for gospel renewal would be achieved when Christ returns and we have the new heart and the new heavens, and everything will be transformed. We all will be transformed. Our world will be transformed as it is. But God in his graciousness is not leaving us to wait until then. Even right now, we're experiencing renewal. So there are clear glimpses of it. The way the Bible puts it is that we're tasting of the power of the age to come. So I think that even right now, right here, we are seeing families restored. We are seeing people saved. We are seeing people transformed. Wives can tell that my husband, haven't come in contact with the gospel, doesn't remain the same. Employers can tell that this employee who is about the gospel is a different kind of employee. Friends can tell that their friendship with this person is different from every other friendship. Parents can tell oh, my motivation for my kids and my ambition for them is different because of the gospel. So I would say when we understand the gospel as good news, when we understand the object of the gospel, when we are transformed by what Christ has done, all of that bleeds into, implications for different aspects of our life. And I see glimpses of that. I would say for myself, I'm a different person because of what Christ has done, and I can see that as well for other people around me as well.
That's beautiful. And then it's amazing when the gospel can do, right? As you've seen, like we're seeing life transformed on a daily basis and all that. And my next question will now be: let's zoom into Renew itself.
Okay.
There's Renew Academy or Renew Pastoral Training, there's Renew Center. Can you pick each of those and the retreats, which is part of the training, right? And also, what is each of those supposed to achieve? Because you could say, oh, we want to do this, and we just want to do this through leadership training or pastoral training. We don't need to do seminars, or we don't need to do retreats. So what are you trying to achieve with each of those components of it?
Thank you, Pastor K. So I think, as I mentioned earlier, that we want every sphere, from spiritual to social to cultural, to experience gospel renewal. And that's why we've established different initiatives or different ministries under, under Renew, to be able to touch different aspects that I've mentioned. So as you said, we have an academy where we train church leaders, ministry leaders for 2 years. We have a seminar that is held periodically within a year, also aimed at training, leaders within the kingdom, but also leaders from the kingdom, as I've mentioned. That's those that are in ministry, but those that are non-church leaders as well, but are leaders outside. So the seminar exists for those. We have retreats where we go away and spend time together with leaders and zoom in on certain aspects of ministries that would help us to lead sustainable, spiritually vital ministries. So the retreat is also an avenue for impact and for gospel work as well. Those are the ones I can highlight.
And we left out Renew Conference.
Yes. yes, thank you. And also we have the Renew Conference, as we've said. The Renew Conference is more inclusive. It extends to people, whether from the pulpit or the pew. It extends to churches within and outside of Lagos. It's a what do you call, once in every 2 years gathering.
That's biennial.
Yeah, biennial. Once in every 2 years gathering where we come together and through the instrument of the gospel, with prayer, with fellowship with God, we are equipped, and then we're deployed for mission, for gospel outside of that conference. Yeah, so the conference also exists in addition. Thank you for doing that.
And I've been a beneficiary of all of this, right? Of all of it. I'm an alumnus of the Renew Academy. I've attended 2 conferences. Yeah, 2 conferences. Uncountable number of seminars, and I've also been to a couple of retreats, maybe 3 or 4. And I can tell you that every of those have actually shaped the minister that I am, or that I am become, right? Even my theology, my ministry, philosophy, my gospel presentation, even up to counseling and all that. So it's an amazing work that is being done there. So let's zoom into Renew Academy.
Okay.
And because we don't have enough training opportunities for pastors in Nigeria. And there are seminars, I'm not saying there aren't seminars, but and I'm not trying to compare, but I want you to say, what is that thing that Renee is offering that you would say everyone needs to be there, even if you're a seminarian, or do you think that you're just offering the same thing that the seminary is offering? So if someone goes to seminary, they don't need to be there. So what is the unique selling point of Renewal Academy, even though it's a free program? But what's this? Why would you want people to come?
Part of my responsibility and role, thank you for highlighting your experience, from the academy to conferences, and I'm happy to hear of its impacts, and you give God to glory. But part of my role, part of my responsibility is actually reaching out to church leaders, ministry leaders, to encourage them, to learn from them, to also in some capacity coach or consult for them. And one of the things I recognize or realize, or I can affirm when I speak to ministers, sometimes is the enormity of ministry, what it entails. And sometimes it doesn't come with a sealed manual. The scripture is there to guide us on how to do God's work. But contextually, you find out that there are things you learn on the job, ministry leadership, particularly, and I would say all kinds of leadership as well. It's a place where you get to learn on the job. You probably get your certificates before you experience your test and your exams.
Yeah.
So things come up that you have to learn. And one of the things that would happen is when God calls someone, there needs to be a sitting down to count the cost. There needs to be a sitting down to evaluate, what does God want us to do in this context. So I would say that with Renew, our focus, particularly the academy now, which is highlighted, is in 4 areas. We want to see people's way of thinking about ministry so much shaped and influenced by the gospel. So you can call it ministry philosophy, but a way of thinking about ministry that is gospel-centered. That's one thing. Another thing is we want to see the leaders themselves become spiritually vital, because you can't plant out of nothing. You can't lead out of nothing. You can't lead from emptiness. You can't lead people to where you have not been yourself. So you need to have a rich and vital relationship with God for you to be telling them about, inviting them to come on board with the same God. So spiritual vitality is a simple one. But if you are healthy as a leader, if you have a good way of thinking about ministry, but you don't have the right message, that will not be enough. And so theological orthodoxy is another thing. So you have to understand the gospel, you have to work it out in your life, and then it has to flow from your life. There are many verses in scripture that motivate or inspires us to do certain things, but uses the instrument of the gospel to inspire us. Forgive as you have been forgiven. Love as you have been loved. There are many one another's, but it's not simply a moral code to abide by. It's something that flows out of a living relationship with God. And so knowing the right theology that Christians have believed over the years. We can disagree on secondary matters. There are certain primary theological things, I think, that makes you a seasoned ministry leader. So that's another one. And the last one is ministry methodology. And for anyone who has led a ministry or pioneered the ministry, you would know that there are different methods and there are different ways. And while the methods may change, the mission of God remains the same. And so people sometimes are asking, where do I start from? I have this conviction, but where do I start from? And so another area that we focus on is ministry methodology. And so we think of ways and methods by which people can pioneer and establish ministries and then keep them sustainable as long as possible.
Wow. And that's so beautiful to hear. And like I said, how I'm a beneficiary of this, and so I know all of these things. And
So my next question will be, you started Renewal in 2019?
I came on staff in 2019.
The academy
started.
The academy.
The academy started in 2019. Right.
So I remember we were the third cohort
Yes.
right? And the fourth cohort is ongoing.
Yes.
So how many people would you say that have gone through? And by going through, I'm not talking about the number of people admitted. I'm talking about the number of people who complete. Or maybe if you have, because I remember our own set, about 20 something of us started, but maybe just about 7 or 8 of us, graduated at the end. So, like, how many people would you say have been trained in the last 7 years now, because it's the fourth quarter and all that. So how many people have been trained, and how would you measure the impact of what you've achieved through Renewal so far?
Yeah, so every time you mention what you have achieved, I feel like pointing up. I don't know if our viewers understand how ministers will point up and say, to God be the glory. But I understand what you mean, sir. From 2019, we've had 3 cohorts. We're on the 4th one with the academy. And by the grace of God, we've had 26 people start and finish. Now, we admitted much more than that sometimes, as you've highlighted your particular cohort, where we brought about 14 people on board, and then 6 of them finished. So I would say 26 have gone through the 2-year academy and have completed it so far. And currently we are running a course that will finish in May next year. And we have about 16 people currently in the training.
And then did you admit?
18.
So just to and then out of those 26 people, because you train, and I know that you do more than training, you follow up on that, you follow up on me, and all that. Would you say that it's been worth it? And is there a way to measure how the impact? Like, I could share my own testimony of what Renewal has done to me. But I like to say that my encounter with Pastor Femi gave me like a 15-year. I caught up like 15 years in my ministry that was also Francis. But that's my testimony. Do you have feedback from some of the other graduates who know that the impact of the Renewal is seen in their ministry and all?
Yes. Yes, indeed. That's the right answer. I'll start with you. You've highlighted your testimony, but there are a couple of others as well. And if I sit from the coordinator's point of view and I look at it, it's been something fulfilling for me. People come sometimes confused, sometimes isolated, but then they find fellowship, they find support, they find encouragement, being on the training. People's theology are set right. But sometimes it's beyond what they believe and what they are being taught. It's that they also find fellowship. They find a place for them to share their burden, for them to be heard, for them to be encouraged. I've had people who believed differently. I would say, just to put it in context for our audience, I will use the word tribe. In the faith, we belong to one faith, but we don't believe the same thing the same way sometimes. So you have people that would believe the same thing, but maybe in different ways, come on board the training, and you find collaboration and ministry partnership within them that would not have existed before the training. Yeah. Exchange of pulpit, exchange of ideas, and support. People renting out their space or giving out their space to each other to encourage each other. People preaching for one another. People doing ministry for one another. I recall a particular minister had one of their church members in a serious health challenge, and could not get from one end of town to the other and had to rely on someone from the training to help him cover that gap while he travels all the way down to visit. So you have all of these partnerships. You have people being supported financially because they found themselves on the training. So these are some of the testimonies. And then ultimately, you've had ministries pioneered. Some of them are churches, some of them are Christian ministries already started. Even outside of ministry, you've had people's life transformed, even in terms of their leadership outside of the church. So, people don't often focus on how much the gospel even changes the kind of worker or the kind of bosses that we should be. And so you had testimonies of those kind of transformation, happen from the Renew Fellowship and the Renew cohorts.
And that's so on point, because I remember someone reached out to us as a church on Instagram, and he was saying he had some challenges and all that, and we were like, "Where do you stay?" And he said, "I'm in Abuja," and we're in Lagos. We couldn't really help, but we wanted to see if we could help, and so I reached out to one of the pastors in our own cohorts then. Pastor Tokpe Shaba of the Baptizing Church, and I just referred it to him, and he went there and they sorted him. He's a member of the church now. They put him in school and all of that. Amazing. And all of that wouldn't have happened if I didn't meet Pastor Tokpe at Renew and built a relationship with him. So on that, I totally can relate with that, as it were.
Sound doctrine, Christ-centered gospel, leading you to authentic faith. Stay with us on Revival and Reformation Television, and your life will not remain the same. Thanks for watching Revival and Reformation Television.